Hello. Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? So, this is my first time being by myself on a live stream, so bear with me. But, all right, thank you, Geek Boy and Scott. Um, I want to go ahead and do some shout outs to all of the participants. I see Scott's Aquatics was here, Rico Stan is here, My Fish Tanks Aquatics is here, Mike's Aquatics and Things, Levi's Aquariums and Terrariums, and I see you're a new subscriber. Thank you. Thank you to all my new subscribers. Misfit Reptiles and Aquatics is here. Lady Metalhead, Kelly Foreman, Jesse, IHSP, Geek Boy, Eric Wyrock, Dream Fishkeeping, Berkeley Bell. I see that you're going to be lurking. That's awesome. Thank you for listening. Blessed with Pets, Ben Beckstrom. And I think that's it. Oh, Jerome. Jerome just came in. Thank you guys. So let me get back into the chat now. Kelly Foreman, thank you. A little backstory on this pond. Thank you for everyone who's saying hello. So Best Blessed with Pets wants to know, what size tank would you guys recommend for bass? Her brother really wants to keep bass, but she doesn't know what tank size to use for them, and she wants to help him do it right. So if anybody has any suggestions for tank size for bass, please let her know. So a little backstory on my pond. My pond was originally my grandmother's pond. I do live in what used to be her house. And she created this pond years and years ago. I will be doing some maintenance on it and uploading a video on how I do the maintenance on it. This was last year, in the springtime, after I had already done spring maintenance. It's been up and running for several years. It got to the point where there were no more goldfish in it because of neighborhood cats. And so I restocked it 2 years ago, and I have an absolutely gorgeous, huge goldfish that I call Big Mama. And then I have another one that's about half her size that I call Little Mama, and lots of babies. So luckily, I've been able to keep the cats somewhat out of the pond. But this elephant here is her elephant that she put on there. And I did have it working, but then my pond pump went out. So I now have to get a new pond pump. But so Atkins Nature Aquariums says bass need at least 125 gallons once fully grown. Geek Boy, a pair of bass would be best off in at least 1 acre. I agree, the bigger the better for bass because they do get big, and they'll just do better with a higher volume of water. Cold Water Aquatics. IHSP is saying to ask Cold Water Aquatics. So Yes, guys, thank you for everybody. Pretty much everybody here is a new subscriber. There may be a few that have been subscribed for a little while, but um, I've gotten almost 50 subscribers in the last week. So I thank you guys for that very, very much. Um, so to talk about basically what I'm going to do with my pond maintenance for the spring. It's been 2 years since I've totally emptied out the pond. Last year, I just basically got a net and got as much of the fallen debris in the pond out with the net. So this year, I'm going to be lowering the water level and probably catching the fish and putting them in a holding tank while I spray out the pond completely and try to get as much as the gunk out of there. Over the winter, it does get some hair algae and things of that nature, which is fine during the winter. Um, it does help the biological load and all of that during the winter, but now it's starting to warm up, and I would like clear water and not green water. So I'm going to be definitely working on that. So I will pull the fish out and then get in there and clean it really well, spray it out. Probably going to have to move around some of the gravel and the rocks that are in the bottom because it all settles over time. I have over to the right side of my screen, the side that doesn't have all the lilies is the shallow end of the pond. It is a little bit shallower than the other side. So I've got most of the rocks on that end. Um, just for aesthetic purposes and to keep the deep end deeper for the wintertime. So Atkins Nature Aquarium sunfish are absolutely awesome. They would be fine in a smaller tank or a small pond like mine outdoors if you live in the south. Not sure how they do closer up north because they're more of a southern native species. So, so does anyone have any questions for me? Hey S, I see S just came in. How are you doing today? IHSPs. Do you have any try not to forget tips for first time tubers? So, my biggest do not forget is don't forget to pull up my YouTube stream live chat because I did find out the other day that the comment section in the StreamYard, um, I don't like as much as the comment section in YouTube. I seem to be able to follow along better in the YouTube comments. Um, I use StreamYard, so it pretty much walks you through everything. It does a mic check and a camera check and all of that. Um, but one of the biggest things that I would say not to forget is um, just have fun and go with the flow. And oh boy. So, me being brand new to live streaming, I don't know if I'm the best person to ask to try not to forget because there's probably lots that I've forgotten, but try to just go with the flow and okay, IHSP. Thank you for clarifying that. Um, I was trying to figure that out. Tubbers, not tubers. So, um, try not to forget tips for first time tubbers. So what he means by tubbers is doing uh basically a miniature pond in a tub or a cattle trough or whatever receptacle you're using. So one is the smaller it is, the more swings there's going to be. Just like in an aquarium, it will have swings. If you've got rain, if you're in an area that gets a lot of rain during the spring and you're starting your tub outside in the spring, make sure that you put drain holes. Um, the worst thing you can do is not have drain holes and your tub overflows and the fish escape and then meet a untimely demise. So that's the biggest thing for me is making sure that you have drain holes. Um, a good practice for tubbers is to also have some sort of top on your pond, on your tub, whether that be uh, some sort of screen or bird netting or whatever. There's a million different ways that you can do that to keep some of the debris, the fallen leaves, the different pine needles and things like that that would fall into it. With a tub, because it is so much smaller, you don't want a lot of debris like leaves getting into it because it can lower your pH too much. Um, so another thing is don't forget oxygenation, whether that be a lot of live plants, plants that are more like bog plants that come out the top of the tub, whether you're doing lilies or some kind of guppy grass or whatever kind of live plants you have in there. Make sure that you have something that's going to oxygenate the water. You can also use a sponge filter, for instance, that would not only oxygenate the water, but it would also keep a cycle going. Because most of the time, when you're doing summer tubbing, you're doing it for the summer and then either breaking it down or catching all the fish and bringing them um, in the fall. So I haven't done a whole lot of summer tubbing, Um, I mainly just deal with the pond. Um, so if I've forgotten anything, please let me know in the comments in the chat so that I can also mention that. So Jesse W, I got into the hobby back whenever I was a kid. My grandma had two very large fish tanks in her house in her front room, what we call the living room. And one was saltwater, one was freshwater. I remember her Oscar. Um, so I fell in love with the glass box when I was very, very young. I can remember getting up on the step ladder to feed the fish and things of that nature. So when I was 5 years old, she got me my first tank. It was about 2 gallons. So pretty much anything that I put in it died because I was 5 years old and didn't know how to keep fish. So then when I turned 17 or 18, I got a 10-gallon tank. I was living with her at the time, and I started from there. I still didn't know what I was doing. She pretty much taught me everything that I knew at that time, and that was back when common plecos were very popular, and they would pretty much tell you it could go in any size tank. So I did have a common pleco and a 10-gallon tank. That common pleco actually lived for 10 years. Um, I moved here and there and took my tank with me and would set it up and went through several different types of fish and things. And at that point, I got a 10-gallon and a 20-gallon. And the common pleco went into the 20-gallon. I had guppies in the 10-gallon. And I went to a big box store and got some new fish and threw them in. And unfortunately, the fish had parasites, and I did not catch it in time. And that is what killed my common pleco, which was 14 or so inches long at that time. But I kind of got out of the hobby for a while, and then I went through some things with my mental health, and um, just about 4 or 5 years ago, got back into keeping fish. It's absolutely helped with my mental health. Now I moved into my grandma's house 2 years ago. I do live here by myself, and I now have 8 tanks. One of them is a saltwater tank, which I'm actually doing, getting ready to do a water change on right now. So, but that's basically how I got into the hobby. Um, I got into the hobby because my grandmother introduced me to it, and I came from a family that my grandfather was a crabber and a shrimper, and so we grew up around the water, around fishing and all of that. And so water has always been a big part of my life. So let me get back in here, see where I'm at. Blessed with pets. She says we, she or he, I'm not sure. I'm sorry. Says we live in Louisiana and have a huge pond in front of our house that my dad built. My brother just wants a tank in his room and he's trying to get bass, but I know he's not going to get anything larger than a 55. Yeah, a 55 would probably house a smaller bass um, for a little while until it got, too large for it. And then if you have the huge pond, he could then release it into the pond. That is an option, but the 55, it wouldn't be long in the 55 before it outgrew it. Um, yeah, yeah, no 10 gallons for bass. No matter how small they are, they will grow very, very quickly. Misfit, how you doing? Atkins Nature Aquariums, yes, everyone needs a saltwater tank. Um, Dream fish keeping, also on my list. I just love freshwater so much. Um, Geek Boy needs a saltwater tank like they need another hole in the head. So I was really nervous about starting a saltwater tank. I ended up researching it for probably 3 months total. I kind of looked into it and was very nonchalant about it. And then it was kind of like all of a sudden, it kind of clicked. I really want to do this, and how can I do this on a budget? And so I started researching do it yourself and basically what they need, the parameters, what type of flow they need, beginner fish, beginner corals, um, the whole thing. And so I watched a lot of different people. Bahama Llama Remy was one of the ones that I watched, and then like Reef Tank Builders and Mr. Saltwater and all of those bigger common channels on the saltwater side. Um, I really started watching. I'm one of those that when I research something, I will watch 10 different videos on the same exact thing just to see how people do it differently, um, and kind of go from there and see basically the best option for me to provide what they need. And so I've got just for instance, everybody talks about refugiums. Well, I started with a 20-gallon long, and I bought a breeder box that was a hang on back breeder box, and it didn't have it. It was one of those that came with the hookup for an air pump where you put the air pump on and then it pulls the water in and it flows through. Well, it didn't have enough flow for me, so I rigged it up and did a do it yourself refugium using that and a very small pond pump that I got cheap off of Amazon. And that created my refugium. It did have the 3 sections in it, and so it was very easy to put my macroalgae on one side, and then certain filter media on in the middle, and then just some rock rubble in the end. Seeded it with copepods and was good to go. So the other things that I did, instead of spending a large amount of money on um, wave makers and things of that nature, I got pond pumps and the rain tubing that you would use with a canister filter, and put those on the pond pumps, put them in different areas of the tank, and basically when they flow, one hits the other and it causes the different water movement. Um, So then my saltwater tank is ran off of a canister filter. I did upgrade my tank to a 29-gallon. And so my canister filter that was with the 20 long, I gave all of that to my mom and started a saltwater tank for her. And so she has the 20 long set up. I went with a 29-gallon because the base dimensions are the same, as a 20 long. It's just a lot taller. And so I moved everything over and got a new canister filter. And the canister filter that I have now is rated for a 55-gallon. It does have adjustable flow. And so now that's what I have on there. Um, I have a heater and I use that Refugium box. Then my mother, my wonderful mom, um, got me a new light for Christmas, and I cried like a baby because it was a $200 light. Um, and so pretty much everything is going pretty well. Had an outbreak with some algae, and so I'm treating that now. Um, and doing 100% water change. And basically, what happened was the salt that I had was hard as a rock. I didn't know that it could mess up your parameters when it does that. And so I used it not knowing. Um, and so then it caused some issues. So I have new salt and going to be doing a very large water change with the new salt. And hopefully that will help. But, but yeah, salt water is if you know the basics of freshwater, parameter-wise, and all of that, it's cycling and all of the basics, then it's not that big of a leap. Um, it's not that big of a leap into saltwater. It's knowing the basics, understanding the basics, and then growing those basics. So if you're just doing if you're doing a tank that is, um, I have to write it down so I can say it right. Okay, I can't remember the word for it, but basically it's live rock with fish only. Um, if you're doing a tank with just fish, um, that would be my suggestion to start with, um, because fish are somewhat, depending on what fish you get, can be a little more hardy than corals are. I do suggest you start with soft corals because they're usually the hardiest corals. But basically, make sure your nitrates and phosphates stay low, and your calcium and all of that is at the proper. It has to be high enough for your corals. That's not as much of an issue if you're not doing corals, if you're only doing fish. Um, Blessed with pets, yes. Saltwater is a little more expensive. The fish are more expensive. The corals are more expensive. I use instant ocean reef crystals. It's what I started with. It's what I continue with. I do use tap water, which is one of the issues that I have with more algae. If I used RO water, then I would not have as many issues with algae as I have. Um, it did good for the first 10 or 11 months, and now just the past couple months I've had some algae issues. So hopefully, um, thank you, Blessed with Pets. Um, hopefully I'll be able to do RO in the future. Hey, Kayla's Aquatics, how are you doing? Bob. So, Geek Boy, yeah, that's one of the issues that that's one of my biggest issues with the salt water is having to mix the water um 24 hours beforehand so that it gases out and the pH stabilizes and all of that stuff. That's like the most pain with it is, you know, having to mix it beforehand. It's not easy. It's not as easy as fresh water as just going in and doing a water change. You do have to prepare. It is a little bit more work than freshwater tank. But for me, it's worth it. Um, I get a lot of joy out of it. So, and saltwater isn't for everybody. And yes, Kelly Foreman, um, I can understand not wanting to deal with any of that. Um, and that's cool. It's not everybody's cup of tea. I'm still a beginner with it, even though it's been up and running for a year. I still am a beginner with it. I'm still learning as I go, and um, kind of doing what I can with it as I go. So yes, Geek Boy, hooking up the Python, turning on the water to do a water change for fresh water. Absolutely amazing. I have it's a different brand, but it's the same concept as a Python. It's just a cheap brand. And I love it. My mom got one first. She has a 60-gallon tank, and she got one first, and I was like, "This is awesome! I can go through and do water changes in an hour for all 8 of my tanks." So, yes, if you do not have a Python and you have multiple tanks or you have a very large tank, I would definitely recommend getting a Python or some other brand that's the same thing. Yeah, Atkins. I use tap for my reef, but my tap is almost RODI. Mine is not. Mine is very hard water. Um, and the pH is a little above neutral. It comes out the tap about 7.6. So that helps out some with the pH being a little higher to keep my pH up. Um, but yeah, my water is very hard. I do have to treat it. So let me go back up here. Manes, tail, furs, and fins, welcome and thank you. Um, it took me about a year to get up the courage to do live streaming, and so yes, thank you. I've always kind of been in the background and on chat with other people and all of that, so um, it's kind of cool. Levi's Aquariums, no need to be sorry. You do what you need to do. If you just need to listen in, that's amazing. I'm just glad that I have people I have people on this live stream. Um, Blessed with pets. I going back to yours here. You've got multiple betas, a 20-gallon long, and working on a 55 freshwater. I absolutely love betas. I have 5 betas right now. Betas are kind of one of my passions. I had a beta named Sam, and he lived for almost 3 years. The poor thing had a tumor, and he is the one and only fish I've ever had to euthanize, and that was one of the hardest things that I ever did. I still get choked up thinking about it. He was just an awesome, awesome fish, and I know there are a lot of fish that have really cool personalities and all of that. And he was one of those. He definitely had a personality, and we really I kind of felt like I could communicate with him. One of my really cool memories with him is I put a knee right snail in his tank, and he didn't mind the ram's horn snails that were in there. But when I put that knee right snail in there, he was a little upset with me. And that knee right snail, he started being friends with me until he would get on his floating log. And he would come, he would look at me, and then he would look at that knee right snail on his log, and he'd flare, and he'd look back at me, and he'd look back at the snail and flare. And I'd go in and pop the snail and, just kind of scoot him off. He'd go down the bottom, he'd go in his, Sam would go up into his floating log, and he was good. He did not like his snail on that floating log. That was his and his only. So, betas are one of those things that I really like. Yeah, you have 8 betas. That's amazing. So, I think my chat jumped. So, let me go back up here. Geek Boy, I did not know that. Geek Boy says that I used to have a room full of saltwater tanks back in the late 80s through the mid 90s. That's amazing. That was one of those tanks that my grandmother, one of her tanks was saltwater and one of them was freshwater. And with my grandfather being a shrimper and crabber, he was always out on the boat and he'd bring things in, and she'd get starfish out of the ocean, and different different things. He'd bring her in coral that he had pulled up in the shrimp net. This was way back in the 80s and early 90s, and so nowadays you can't do that, but back then it wasn't an issue. So let's see here. Bob, how are you doing today? Um, Pond is looking good. Yes, this was last year's picture. Um, it is got quite a bit of algae and stuff in it now, and so um, I've definitely got to do some maintenance to it. What I was saying earlier is I'm probably going to go in and drain most of it, pull the fish out, and then do a really good deep clean on it. I did not do a deep clean last year. I just went in with the net and got most of it out. But now there's a lot of fallen debris, limbs, and well, not limbs, but stuff out of the palm tree and leaves and all that good stuff in the bottom. So it builds up over time. And so it's got to have a good spring cleaning. So I will be doing that very soon. And I will record as much of it as I can. Blessed with Pets, Home Depot play stand for freshwater tanks. I use that all the time. The biggest thing with that is you have to rinse it. And when I say rinse it, I mean rinse it and rinse it and rinse it, because it can gunk up the tank very quickly. I would also suggest, if you're using the play stand for the freshwater tank, to get some filter floss, and for the first 24 hours or so, run the filter floss in your filter and take it out and throw it away, because that will get a lot of the extra junk that comes up from the sand out of the water. One thing to remember with the play sand is that for the first month, maybe 2 months, you may see more diatoms. Um, diatom is an algae that is like a brown, mucky looking algae. It feeds on silica, and a lot of play sand has silica in it. And so until that silica has been eaten up out of the water, you will have diatom. You can kind of help that by stirring the sand a bit and siphoning the sand. It kind of stirs it up and keeps its silicone coming out, and then eventually the diatoms will go away. I've had, let's see, two, I think four of my tanks have the play stand in it, and the first couple months was crazy with diatoms. I don't mind the diatoms. I know that it's kind of a natural part of a new setup. Um, but once all the silicates were out, I haven't had any problems with it since. My plants grow absolutely wonderful in it. I grow easy plants, um, but they grow great. I just use, I'm saying a lot. I use root tabs and things like that down in the sand around my stem plants, my plants that are need a little bit more nutrition. So, at Nature Aquariums, you can use freshwater equipment in saltwater. One thing to remember is that, like, for instance, I used my canister filter that I originally had with the 20 lung that's now at my mom's. I'd been using that for a freshwater tank. I threw all of the media away and got brand new media. Freshwater bacteria and saltwater bacteria are different. And so rinsed it out, cleaned it out really well. I believe I bleached it and started fresh with brand new media. Um, fish only, fish only with live rock fowler. That's what I was trying to remember a while ago. Fish only with live rock. You can use a shop light. Um, I would I would put it a little higher, just so that you don't have as much issue with the algae. But you can use a hang on back and all of that. Yeah, so absolutely. I started off with mostly freshwater equipment, and I did have coral. I had soft coral, and I had a freshwater light that had the blue setting and the white setting, and it was the one where it had blue and white together. So I had two lights on there. I turned on both of those, and it worked fine. Um, I would say if you're going that route with the coral, pretty much only soft coral will do well with the freshwater light. So yeah, Atkins Nature Aquariums, absolutely, that is correct. Um, I would suggest the sand. Um, Instead of using a freshwater sand, I would use crushed coral or something of that nature, just to or an argonite sand, just to buffer the pH a little bit more, because the freshwater saltwater needs a bit higher of a pH. So something like argonite or crushed coral will buffer the water a little better. So definitely. Bob uses pool filter sand, and pool filter sand is really great for that as well. Sorry, my background is kind of messing me up right there. Yeah, pool filter sand is really good too. I've heard of people and I've seen people use black diamond sandblasting sand, and um they've gotten really good results from it. I've never figured out exactly what grain size and all of that for the black diamond sandblasting sand. So I've not tried it, but I have heard of people using it. Yeah. Manes, tails, furs, and fins. Yeah. Playground sand is great. Rinse the heck out of it. Absolutely. So let's go in here. And I am behind in chat. I don't know exactly how far behind, but let's see. Atkins Nature Aquariums, 15 to 18 TDS from the tap. That is absolutely amazing. Um, I'm nowhere near that low in TDS for my tap. Jesse W. It takes balls to live stream, or yeah, it does. I just kind of don't think about it. Think about talking to my friends, and I'm good. All-purpose sand is another option. Thank you. Yes, I've come out of the closet. Mange tails, furs, and fins. Um, Bob, hashtag Tennessee Fish Mafia. Absolutely. Um, love the Tennessee Fish Mafia. I'm just really glad that I have my fish fam. You guys are amazing. Tennessee Fish Mafia. We stick together. Um, Ooh, blessed with pets. Working on breeding betas. I do have a male and female, so keep me updated on that. I would love to know how you do it. I did get a male and female of um, basically the same kind, so that I could breed eventually. I haven't stepped into that yet. The Aquatic Morning Show. Thank you, Jess. So she subbed from both of the channels, so that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Um Blessed with pets. Yeah. There's some things that you are allowed to bring home from the ocean. Nowadays, it differs in different areas. But there's also, like, down in Florida, they have fish that people catch, and they're non-native fish, and so they can't throw them back. So they just take them home and put them in their saltwater ponds or whatever. So yeah, yep, it is pretty cool. Red Laser, back into the hobby after decades of absence. Do many of the participants age their water as we did in the old days? Um, I do know some people age their water, like Chattanooga Ed likes to age his water. Um, I don't. I use Seek 'em Safe. It's a powder, and it's really, really ultra, ultra, ultra concentrated. So I need, like, literally 1/32 of a teaspoon for most of my tanks. It lasts quite a while. But no, I don't. I don't age my water, and I don't know very many people who do. We have talked about that recently on some streams, and most people don't age their water anymore. Um, One thing about aging the water, like they did in the old days, is nowadays the chlorine and chloramine that they use has stabilizers in it, and so aging the water um, can be pretty much useless because the chlorine and chloramines are still going to be there. Um, just because of the stabilizers they have in it, it would take 2 to 3 times longer to actually age the water now than it did back in the old days. And that also depends on what area you're in and what exactly they use to treat your water. Um, Thank you, Jess. Yes, welcome back into the hobby, Red Laser. Good to have you here. I don't think I've seen you before. I'm not sure. Like I said, this is only my second live stream. Um, so thank you, Mark. Absolutely. Thank you, and thank you for stopping in and catching the replay. Yeah, Atkins Nature Aquariums. Seacom Prime is also a really good option. Prime is really good for smaller tanks, especially if you only have 10-gallon and 20-gallon tanks. Um, it does become a pain to measure out Seacom Safe for smaller tanks because it is such a minute amount. So Prime is absolutely another way to go. And there's other products. API makes some products. I personally use Seacom products and Fritz products. So yeah. Too cooly for schooly. I see you came in. Hello, hello. Atkins Nature Aquariums. Yes, macroalgae is awesome. Um, Definitely thinking about getting some. Hopefully, some that doesn't take over the entire tank. I kind of have this little um, um, corner that doesn't have anything in it but a little bit of rock. And so I'm thinking about putting a little dash of macroalgae in the display tank. So yeah. Jess, yeah, I know. Thank you so much for chatting with us. So yeah. Blessed with pets? No, I don't. Thank you. Daniel Velez, thank you for stopping by. See, you had to go. I don't know if you're still around, but thank you so much for stopping in. Okay, blessed with pets, 3 pairs of the same kinds of betas, but haven't been able to get them to breed yet. Yeah, I've heard it's not the easiest thing to do. Trying a crown tail female with a veil tail male just because they were my only 2 fish in breeding condition. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like Jess said, stick with it. It isn't easy and it can test your patience. Hi, Surf City Sitlets. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And hello to all the other fine fish people. So, Bob, I'm glad you mentioned that. If you guys give me just a second, I'm going to um, invite myself real quick so that I can um, get a video up from my phone Just bear with me just a second. Atkinson's aquariums, yeah. Grape Calopa is one of those that will definitely take over from what I've seen, but it's a good thing your emerald crab doesn't mind eating it. So yeah, Jesse, I absolutely love my shell dwellers. Um, I'm gonna mute myself on this one and enter the studio. Okay, whoa. Okay, there we go. Now, let's turn this around. Let's see here. The easiest way to do this. Nope, that's not going to happen. And I have a bear with me, hold on. All right. See if you guys can see them. So there is a bit of and it's freezing. I don't know if you guys can see that as well, but there's a bunch of babies. Yes, Bob. Neolamprologus multifasciatus. Why is that doing Okay. Gonna get rid of that now. So yes, Bob, they are Neolampologus multifasciatus. They are shell dwellers. A lot of people call them multis or shell dwellers for short. They are from Lake Tanganyika. This tank is basically run by sponge filters, and I think that's better. You're welcome, Bob. Um, but yeah, it's run by sponge filters, and it has the I'm gonna have to turn my phone off now because it's that's gonna drive me crazy. But it's got the same sand as what I was talking about earlier with it's got crushed coral and argonite sand in it to keep my pH buffered. It does buffer it at an 8.0, which they tend to enjoy. And I do have Tanganyikan citric salt that I do put in there with them. I recently, I don't have a top on the tank, and I didn't have my auto top off set up. So I recently set up my auto top off, and basically I'd let it get down to about halfway so that it's kind of like doing a water change because of all the evaporation. And took some water out and then started filling up my auto top off and let it slowly refill the tank with cold water. Of course, already um, I'd already put my Seek 'em Safe and all of that in there. I tend to also put Stress Coat or Stress Sign Plus, or like I like using the Fritz 7 bacteria. I also have some of the it's another bacteria brand. I can't remember the name of it right now, but I use the new one in there and then let it slowly fill up with cold water. And within a week, I have 7 different sets of fry. So doing that cold water top off with it's about 50% water change made them think that it was rainy season, and they absolutely went crazy. So it was hard to see because of me shaking and all of that, but there are actually 7 sets of fry in that tank right now. Um, so I already have some in an overflow tank. So if anybody wants multis, hit me up. So I don't know, blessed with pets, if comet goldfish would eat bettas. I wouldn't recommend keeping them together just because their parameters are different. The goldfish like a lot lower temperatures than the bettas do. I mean, I'm sure somebody somewhere has gotten away with doing it, but I wouldn't. Yeah, red laser. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, so red laser is saying that he or she ages the water and uses Secum Prime, um, because the city uses phosphates to reduce lead pipes leaching, plus chloramine and chlorine. So, yes. Atkins Nature Aquariums. That is the reason why I will not have an emerald crab. I don't have zoas. I am still super nervous about zoas. The whole paleotoxin thing just threw me for a loop, so I have not gone into zoas. I have enough issues with lung health and all that as is. So, but yes, Jerome, yes, multis are the best. So I took um, Atkins Nature Aquariums. Yes, emerald crabs are probably really good for sumps. um, where was I at? Multis are the best, Jerome. Yes, I waited about a year. So I'd seen multis on Rachel O'Leary's channel, and I love Rachel's channel. If y'all have not checked out her channel, go and check it out. It's really awesome. Um, she has a lot of information on summer tubbing and all of that as well, which I really enjoy. But she showed her shell dwellers, and I was like, I really want to get those. And I ended up moving in here and had this 30-gallon breeder tank in storage at my dad's house, and so I was like, I'm gonna set up a 30-gallon and I'm gonna get multis. So it took me about a year to be able to get them. Um, once I had learned about them, but yes, they are awesome. They're always producing, and I love that. Yeah, they're throwing crushed coral on each other right now. Uh, They do like rearranging the tank. If you're a person who wants a pristine tank that wants it to stay like it is when you set it up, they are not for you. They will rearrange the tank to their liking. Um, I have quite a bit of uh, Malaysian trumpet stills in there just to keep the sand clean, so that when they're throwing the sand around, it doesn't muck up the tank as much. But then they kind of overrun it. So then I got some assassin snails, and I love my assassin snails. They have actually bred in my tank and um, are doing really well. Hey, Eduardo, I see you just came in. Good to have you here. And so anyway, they do their own thing, but what I love about them, I got off um, on a tangent there, is they they help each other raise all the fry. They don't eat their fry, and you'll see two or three different broads of fry kind of swimming together, and all the females kind of hovering over them, and the males hovering over them, and they're all very protective of each other's fry. And so that to me is amazing. They're actually fish that colonize, and um, they work together on raising their fry. And I've not had any fish to do that before, that I have kept. And so so yeah, I love them. Absolutely love them. Um, so let's scroll back up. Ben Beckstrom, I'm right there with you. Absolutely love them. Um, Jerome, this tank is only 12 inches tall. Um, but if you're tubbing and it's shallow and it gets overheated, that may have been an issue, if it was too shallow and overheating. So yeah, best blessed with pets. Definitely, if you're doing the best that you can right now, that's all that you can do. Um, and I don't think that the one small comet goldfish with the beta sorority is going to be an issue short term. So Jerome, Rachel is awesome, and that is pretty cool. Jerome says Rachel's the best. I actually ended up at her house one day after finding some fish stuff for sale on Craigslist. Was a bit shocked to just randomly run into her like that. Yeah, that's one of those things that's pretty awesome. Eduardo. Too Cooley for Schoolie says, I have like 30 assassin snails if anyone here in Alberta, Canada wants some. Assassin snails are awesome. They they keep my snail population in check, and the main reason I got them was because I had an outbreak of pond snails, or whatever you want to call them, in general, pond snails, and I do not like pond snails. I don't mind ram's horn snails, but I don't like pond snails in my fish tanks. In my pond, they're fine, but in my fish tanks. And so the assassin snails, within about 2 weeks, had completely devoured all of the pond snails, and I've not had snails in this tank since. And so, yeah, I love them. They're awesome. Yeah, blessed with pets, definitely. If you can rescue fish, I definitely suggest it. It's really amazing. So, everybody, it's been an absolutely wonderful live stream, and I have not been watching the time. It is 4:16, so I'm gonna go for about 5 minutes more. If anybody has any pressing questions or anything like that, please put them in the chat. I've pretty much caught up. Um, if I missed you, I'm sorry. Go ahead and put it back in so that I can see it. Too coolly for schooly. Yes, they do control other snails very, very well. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for coming, and I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Don't forget, you can go to the fishfam.link and look at the calendar. There are a lot of live streams going on tonight. That's why I did mine so early in the day, because I am a night owl. But yeah, there's a lot of great people going live tonight, so don't forget to tune into them. And again, thank you to all of my subscribers. Pretty much all of my subscribers are new subscribers, so thank you guys so much. Oh, thank you, Blessed with Pets. I appreciate that. I am going to be going live as much as I can, probably once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, just depending on what's going on. So, but yeah, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys go. Thank you guys for, and when I say guys, I mean guys and gals. Thank y'all for tuning in and for chatting with me. I absolutely appreciate it. Um, I love my fish fam. You guys are awesome. um, so to Cooley for Schoolie, I did change my name. I added the Savannah Daughter on there. It is the same. My it's still my channel. I just changed the name. But bye guys. Thank you for all of the chatters, the lurkers, the listeners, my replay crew, everybody. Thank you guys, and I shall see you later.